I think one of the things that I haven't figured out that I'm currently working on is just consistent self-care.
Welcome to the Table Talk podcast, where we get real, meeting with industry professionals and experts in the chiropractic world, talking about the newest and latest, how to scale your practice, the struggles that we all face in practice, and how you can take your practice to the next level. All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I have with us a very special guest today, Dr. Stephanie Mage. Welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so we met through the state association. You're going to be speaking this coming fall for our organization, and I thought, what a great opportunity to bring you on the podcast. Let you share a little bit about what you do. I know that you are the owner of Curious Functional Health here in Chicago, and you run a really cool podcast, Women Seeking Wellness. And
Right.
I looked through the list of guests that you've had on that. You know, actually some of the people that you've had on as far as the home birthing and things like that are actually people that we've dealt with ourselves in the Chicagoland area, with my wife having our kids. So,
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
So Doc, I like to always just kind of start off like introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and kind of how you got into this crazy world of chiropractic.
Well, first off, thank you for having me. And I really appreciate being here and being on the show, and also being able to speak in the fall at the state convention. I've been a chiropractor since 1994. So I've been doing this this is my 30th year in practice. And I'm as in it now as I have ever been, which is wonderful. I did not grow up in a chiropractic family. I did not I really thought I was going to be a pediatrician. That's really what I wanted to do. Interestingly enough, that's what I do right now is that's my specialty, pediatrics and pregnancy. And so I grew up in Ohio. And for me, what ended up happening is I really do think chiropractic picked me. I was heading the pre-med route and thinking I'm going to medical school. And I had a friend who was a good enough friend to tell me the truth that every time I talked about that, I kind of had a little anxiety panic attack, and maybe it's not the best idea. And so I paused and worked for a little bit after undergrad and got into a car accident, went to a chiropractor, and the rest is kind of history. Like it was a really young Palmer grad and really excited about chiropractic and got me juiced. And that's what got me into chiropractic. And that was how I got into it, really not knowing a lot about chiropractic, about, the straights, the mixers, the blah, blah, blah. I went to National because in National College Chiropractic. So, oh, that's right. This is for chiropractors. So I don't need to explain this. Yeah. So I went to National because National was in Chicago, and I'm from Ohio. You don't move to Iowa.
Yeah.
You don't move to Kansas City or, St. Louis, or those were those were really in my realm. You move to Chicago, man, you go to a big city. I had no idea, when somebody said, oh, this is as close to a medical education as you can get. I had no idea that wasn't a good thing, and I'll never regret learning all of that science. But I really, part of my journey in chiropractic was failing for 3 years, coming out of that school with really no idea what chiropractic was, and no idea about subluxation and innate and the power that made the body heals the body and all of that. Really, I had no idea. And I was, like I said, failing 3 years in practice. And a friend of mine said, we should go to this seminar. And this is where I'm actually, I really feel like I'm a product of practice management, a product of seminars, because so much, they say the universe abhors a vacuum, and so I was a vacuum of knowledge about subluxation, innate intelligence, all of that. And so when I went to this first seminar, it was like I was born again, and and so I remember the second seminar I went to, it was the Master's Circle. It was the Masters back then. It was a long time ago. 1999. Anyway, the second seminar was in Davenport. And it happened to be the weekend that Guy Reekman's daughter passed away. And so it was just this really powerful energy. I literally saw the bench that Harvey Lillard got adjusted on and had a spiritual experience. Then they're like, we're going to open up the bookstore and you can buy green books. And I'm like, awesome. What's a green book? Like I didn't know, and anybody that's listening that went to one of those schools can relate. You're like, what? And they took us on a tour of the mansion, which they do not do, and stuff like that. So it was really a powerful thing. And I just spent probably the next 10 years of continuing ed and all of that, just going to everything had to be, vitalistic, subluxation. Like I just really went for it. And I never looked. It just never looked.
It's funny because, being the vice president of the IPSCA, I have this conversation so frequently with chiropractors who have gone to less philosophically oriented schools and
diplomatic.
Yes. And I grew up in the Quad Cities. So like my two older brothers are Palmer grads. I'm a life grad. And like, so I have these conversations, but it like everyone that I talk to, they always tell me that like, oh, my life changed when I found out about, philosophically based thinking. And I think that for me, it's always been just one of those things. It's been so ingrained since I was a kid, because that's how my chiropractor was ADIO. Right. And that was, so like, I always knew that I was going to be a chiropractor because I love, but like, it's so cool when you hear like that sort of philosophy then come later and how transformational it was. And so,
right. I mean, I really feel like I had to learn myself out of a hole. It took me about 3 years. I mean, I was burnout seeing 30 people a week. Like I was burnout. I can't see anymore. I mean, I just was spent. And what I know now is that if I really feel like it's all coming from me, then I don't have enough, it does not come, I'm just the conduit, right? Amen. I'm just removing the interference, and the body is, and innate is doing the rest. And so for me, just learning that. And then, there were a couple things, like one of the things I would think that is a hallmark of my practice career is that when I decide, it's like kaboom, right? And so all of a sudden I decide I'm not taking insurance anymore. I can't do it anymore. I'm just done. So in 2000, I was like, I don't care if I got to put a box on the wall. I lowered my prices. Could my staff afford to come and see me? Like that was my goal. And I got rid of insurance, all insurance. I mean, I'm not par with Medicare because you got to be. So, and I built it from there. One day I came in and I was like, I don't want these walls anymore. And I went and I started visiting other chiropractors with an open setting adjusting style. I mean, I'm one of those people, I don't know if you know anything about the Enneagram, but I'm a 6. People like me. I build rapport easy. They want to tell me all their problems.
Yes.
And when I get stuck in a room, I would get stuck in a room. And so I decided, the most fun, I don't know, something happened in the first, 5 to 10 years of my practice where I thought, if I got to do this forever, I really am going to just not try. I'm really going to intentionally create a place where I want to go every ding dong day. Like I tell associates I've had, I'm like, practice is a grind. Like every day I go to the same place. Like every day I show up to relatively the same people, and so I better love it.
Yep.
Or why do this thing? And so one of the things I said was, oh my gosh, I absolutely love it at Christmas, when I would put the table in the middle of my grandma's side room and I just would eat. And then I would be like, no more eating. Let's get around the table. And then people would just come and I would just spend 2 hours just adjusting every single person in the house, and they would come and they'd, oh, am I next? The kids, the adults, and it's just so much fun and just talking and laughing around the table. And that's, so then I visited a bunch of practices that had an open setting. It's more common now, but when I tore my walls down. Every single person thought I was a lunatic. Like literally, I closed on a Wednesday night. Thursdays I had off. That's when I worked Monday through Saturday. And I took Thursdays off, and I had a patient that owed me money who was a contractor come in and tear all my walls down. And on Friday morning, I opened up. I had no walls. So like, and I never looked back. Like that was an old office. But anyway, so that, those kind of decisions I've made a lot in my time.
I was always kind of the same way. I can remember one time somebody complained about the music in my practice. I'm like, I play the music for me, not for you. So
Right.
like,
Right.
sorry, but we're not changing. So,
Right. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I want to go back. So you talked about, the first couple years that it was a grind and a struggle. And so tell me more about what you were doing that made you feel that.
Well, I mean, it's a great question. It's a great question because I think that a lot of times, and I see it on some of the, you're not on the women's chiropractic page, but there's a women's chiropractic page with probably 15,000 chiropractors now. And I see it on there, I mean, for one, I think that just the lack of an understanding of really what I'm doing and what's happening, just crippled me. I mean, the way I was taught, it was not neuromusculoskeletal, it was musculoskeletal, right? And so the neurology and all of that was really left out. And so I just was really just trying to fix people's pain. That's really what I was trying to do. And, I mean, people, number one, they don't always listen to you. Yesterday I found, I have had sketchy results with physical therapists, but I actually have a very good physical therapist. And, part of the things I want to work on is just staying strong because I need to continue to train to do what I do. And they were saying how we focus on the people that don't get better. And I said, well, they're not doing they're not doing the exercises. That's why they're not, we'll take that on. And that's what it was. It was like, I cared more about their health than they did. And now I know how much communication and education is so much more important than really technique. And part of what I have focused on the more I've been in practice is that new patient encounter, that first couple days where I thought I needed to really teach them everything they needed to know about chiropractic. The videos, here, watch these videos, read this, do this, blah, blah, blah. All I got to get them to do is sign on the dotted line and commit to coming in with some regularity, not visit to visit, because that's what I was doing. Like every visit, I'd have to resell them. They're like, I'm not better yet. I'm like, you've been here 2 times. It's been going on for 2 years. Like, come on. So that, I think I had really no direction or idea of how to care for a patient from the phone call through. And I didn't have that understanding that I wasn't the one that's really fixing it. You know what I mean?
I do. I mean, it's funny you say that. You make that comment about technique and I was very lucky to have good mentors early on, and I can remember very early in chiropractic school, my brother gave me the BJ Palmer. You could hit him in the ass with a shovel and they'd probably still get better if you had the right intention behind it. And so that was, not
but
that
you got to also be able to deliver the goods. There's a lot of really shit. Can you cuss on here?
I'm fine with it. Go for it.
Okay. There's I'll just say a lot of chiropractors that need to work
on their skills.
Like if you're going to do a technique, you better be good at good at it.
Yes. And it's I think that find it, fix it, leave it alone. It was always like I'm not going to do any more or any less than what I would do for my wife or for my own kids. And, if you look at it from that perspective, I was never one that was very so dialed in on one specific technique, because it's like all of them work to some extent. It's just a matter of, is it right application for the right subluxation? And so,
exactly.
So it's, I definitely understand where you're coming from there. And
well, new practitioners, they are so focused on the technique, and I see them out there getting more techniques and learning more. And, what I really realized is we are up against a tidal wave of information that is counter to what we believe, right? From advertising to the news media to how Facebook and social media is skewed. And so my job is really to try to, as best I can, put some cracks in that and give them what they want, what everybody really wants is for their body to heal itself. Why is my body not healing itself? Like, what's going on? What's interfering with this? And it's, I always say the law of addition and subtraction. Like, it's not because I need to add something or cut something away. It's like, maybe there's something interfering with this. And so when that goes back to my day one, day two new patient thing. When I explain it, I'm sure you had that, like, oh, that totally makes sense. But I got to do more than explain it, because I know that they got to come in with, like, I will say to people, they'll say, well, what is the biggest complaint people have? And I said, I make people come in a lot at the beginning because I have to break this pattern. And the only way to break this pattern is repetition, right? There's no process that doesn't require time. And so they'll say, oh, that chiropractor made me come. Well, I can't give you a pill. Like, you got to come in. You know what I mean? But so many chiropractors are afraid to really recommend what they need, what people really need. I believe.
I want to dig at that a little bit, because honestly, I've had so many conversations with people of different walks and different trains of life. And I'm very much the same when it comes to that. Like, why do you think it is that chiropractors are afraid to tell people what?
Well, I think that, there's a couple things. I think that there's this need to be liked. And I think that's a human thing, but I think even more, people will say to me all the time, I went to this chiropractor, I loved them. And I'm like, I understand that, but you're not looking for a friend, my job is to tell the truth, right? Yep. And that is hard. That is a confrontational tolerance that is a muscle that I had to learn. And for me, when I look at somebody coming in, I'm thinking, I want this person, my desire is lifetime chiropractic care. But you can't, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. Like, you got to start somewhere. And so I do start at the symptoms, right? Yep. With an understanding of what all of that looks like. But I am selling. And that, I think, is another thing chiropractors hate, to feel like they're selling. What am I selling? Your friggin' life back. Yeah. Right? Your health. Yep. That is what I'm selling. And if that's what I'm selling and I'm making a good living doing it, like, good on me. Like, there's so many people selling things they're going to kill you, or, skeevy ways to make money. And it's like, wow, I'm making money, like, helping people in their lives, little babies, breastfeed, and moms have natural deliveries. Like, if that's what I'm selling, that's not too shabby.
I always looked at it as, it's two parts. I would have rather been respected than liked. And the second part, like, I had someone very early on that stuck with me forever, that you're either selling them on chiropractic care or you're selling them on medicine, and you get the choice. Right. As far as what you're going to sell them. And it's like, if you believe in the product that you're delivering, like, why not sell it? Why would you not do everything you can to help them make the best decision for their life? It's just,
right. And I think that there's, I start right off the bat that, refocusing on the nervous system. And I just don't think people get it. I don't think chiropractors, I went to National, I have friends who, are like, I don't really believe in that whole subluxation thing. And I'm like, well, just like I said to everybody else, it ain't a religion, it's like gravity. It is.
It just is.
Yep. And so, let's see where that gets you in your life. And so for me and my patients, I'm just automatically refocusing it into the nervous system and how that runs the whole body. And again, that happens in that first couple visits, but that, again, I have to drill that in over and over and over and over and over again. And then they still forget, because what we do is such a small slice of their whole life. Yeah. And so that's why at the beginning, if you can keep them in your sphere of influence for more time, and they're getting results, they get better quicker when you see them more. So I'm like, I'll say, 3 times a week for, we don't know how long, like, your body. It depends on all the things. There's no cookie cutter in my office. So, and they'll say, well, I don't know if I can do that. And I go, well, most people give it a try. And once they start feeling the results, they're like, let's just get this thing done. Let's just heal, but if you want to come in twice a week, like, it'll just take longer. And I go, but anything less than that at the beginning is just not enough. This is somebody that's in an active, acute situation, not somebody that, it's transitioning from another chiropractor,
That's
which,
exactly how I practice too. So
okay.
we are of like mind
We
there.
are, I found my people.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you made this transition in practice. We're now practicing the way we want to.
Right.
So the remodel and the open adjusting and loving the vibe. So what did practice look like from that? What?
Well, I think, there's been, just with everything, there's ups and downs, right? When you're in practice long enough, you have weathered many storms. And so I've had many years of I've always been somebody that is I'm always doing a little something in the office, and I've always, I got on Facebook and social media when my nieces and nephews, who now have kids, were first doing it because they wouldn't friend their parents, but they would friend me. So, I had a personal page before business pages existed, right? And so I'm always doing a little of that. But, you weather a lot of storms. Here we are post-pandemic, right? And so people that were either listening to this were either in school during the pandemic or were holding on during the pandemic. I've been through the tech crash, the 9/11. I went through the mortgage crisis of 2008. Like, there's been a lot of things that I have leaned into and just tried to remember that people are more stressed, not less stressed, right? They need me more, not less. And so, for me, practice is, I still love it. I still love it. Yeah,
And I think that that's important. To
yeah,
love what you're doing and serve a
absolutely.
mission and a purpose. And so,
I know for me, just one other thing is just, I also looked at the population of people that I really wanted to help. And so the pediatrics and pregnancy, it's one of those things that I've loved. Now I'm weird. I love a good hot low back. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, come into me with headaches. Like, that is so, rather than I get so many, I'll be honest, one of the hardest patients to commit and transition into more of a long-term care is the pregnant mom, right? Their brains are mush. Once they have that baby, they kind of, some transition. But again, this is what a lot of chiropractors, when I would go to these seminars, I haven't fallen back into a rhythm since the pandemic, but I'm a seminar goer. I like to be in the energy of chiropractors and people, I'm so sorry, my phone is on weird. Anyway, people would lie from the podium, like, everybody that comes in commits to lifetime care in my office, and I'm like, wow, what was I doing wrong? And it's like, no, that's not true. And that's what I've continually worked on, is how to, one of my famous lines is like, once you have a baby, you have a baby, right? You got to hold the baby and care for the baby and breastfeed the baby and lift the baby. Like, you need it more. And so, it's not always an easy transition.
And I think that period of time is like, I've got four kids. And so like that stage after the kids, it's like, there's so much change and so much transition in life. It's like, good luck trying to get in a routine with anything. Right. So I feel you to the nth degree. It is right. I love seeing pregnant mamas, but at the same time, I'm like, come back to me when you're ready, because I know as much as I can try and convince you that this is the best thing that you should do,
right?
You've got to figure that out. So,
well, and you gotta do the best you can do. And for me, one of the things, I'm one of those people that I do, I do care plans, and so in my recommendations, I always put some postpartum care in there.
Yep.
And explain that. And so, they've if they've pre-purchased, which most of them do, they pre-purchased a little chunk of adjustments, they're sitting there, I got a little credit going on. So if I can get them in postpartum, that's wonderful. But again, a beauty of open adjusting as well is that as they're pregnant, they're also seeing me adjust all these babies. And then the new moms are talking to the other moms, and then they're all, so community. They're in that environment. So like, I had a phone call today of somebody that I did a well baby visit on, and I haven't seen them since December. And now just come to find out they're having a lot of issues. And so the baby's coming back in. And so, again, those are the type of things that, I'm here for. And then I'm always like, the other spouses in the family, everybody needs it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your podcast and
Okay.
kind of the genesis of that, and what your goal was with that, and then how it's going.
Okay. So I'm 58. So when I was 49, so that's how long ago I started my podcast. Here I am 49. So, that's 8, 9 years ago. Wow. I was seeing my people, not my chiropractic people, my people in the real world, normies. And I'm seeing them making just boneheaded decisions about their health. And I made a decision a long time ago that if you don't ask me, I'm not gonna unsolicited advice. That is energy that not well spent, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to say anything unless you ask me. And so people weren't asking me, and then they're doing like crazy things, getting on statins and just crazy decisions, or they're giving up. And so they're like, I'm old now, so I guess I can't walk up those stairs anymore. And I don't play, golf anymore because, I'm old now. So, and they just listening to them over and over, like, I'm old. So I thought, well, there's that. And then there's also this other thing, which is like, I'm having these amazing conversations. I go to a ton of seminars. I'm having these amazing conversations with people. And I kept saying, golly, I wish we were recording this. Like, this would help a lot of people. So that's kind of how it started. And so I decided that I was going to speak. The mentor that helped me start the podcast was like, back in the day, it was like, for me, it was like you had to find a niche. Now it's a niche, but anyway. And so I was like, okay, women seeking wellness. So that's how it started. And then he said at the time, I said, well, yeah, I want to, interview women and different people in women's health. And he's like, well, good luck getting women on the show, because I haven't had a lot of success. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted. So the first 100 episodes were only women on interviews on the show. Now anybody, now I've let that go, but it was almost like I just wanted to prove to myself and to him that, that definitely is something that can happen. So that's really what it is. And it's talking about how to be well at any age. And 95% of it is humans seeking wellness, right? And then there's some more specific women issues. And so it's been hundreds of episodes. I've been doing it since 2016. And you can find it on wherever you listen to your podcast.
Yeah. And so, so you're 30 years into practice now.
Right.
You've got this podcast, you've got your practice. What do you see for the future of yourself and the future for chiropractic?
Well, I think for myself, I'm in the sunset of my practice, right? I am really looking at what my transition to the next phase looks like. I really believe that there is something missing in our profession, because no one's really talking about the fact of that there is this last phase of how do we have this wonderful, valuable asset, and how do we make that transition into what does that look like for us? And it requires energy. And I think that part of the problem is that by the time most chiropractors make the decision, they're out of energy, and then they just shutter or give it away, or, nickels on the dollar, So for me, that has really been one of my focuses, is looking at how my legacy in that location, in that practice base, can continue, and what does my last phase of chiropractic look like? I'll be honest, my body hurts. I have 2 hip replacements. Like I have arthritis in lots of places. It takes its toll. So I don't want to keel over my adjusting table. I do not want to do that. That doesn't mean I don't want to be adjusting until a ripe old age, but don't want that to be, that isn't the whole of who I am. There are a lot of other things in this world I want to experience. And so how do I make that transition while still keeping, this wonderful thing I've created alive? That's what I'm working on.
Man, that is, I mean, I think that that is something that we all are, I've noticed this, like, I had just recently sold my practice and, I did well with it, but at the
Mhm.
same point, I think that I've had some conversation with older docs about that are asking me about that process. And I'm like, well, this
Right.
is what we did and this is how we did. And, it's just it's a different sort of phase. But
Right.
yeah, I think you're right. There's not a whole lot of people that are talking about the X.
Well, I think that it's again, if you're at that point where you're just done, and you can get done, you can get served out. Like for me, after the pandemic, I really thought I was done. I was like, I just can't hold any more space for people. I never shut down. I mean, obviously things slowed down during the heat of it, but I really kept. I mean, my wife works for me. Like, we got a mortgage. Like, we got to keep this thing going, you know? And so we were doing what I called the COVID shuffle. We're like, you stay here, you go here, you go here. Blah, blah. And I'm in Chicago. So, you're not,
It
my
was
friends in Iowa never wore masks. Like, you know what I mean? So
it was
it's a
tough
different,
here. It was
it was
tough
tough.
here.
It was tough here. Right. So we made it work and it took some time to heal, as somebody that,
Sure.
and I'm sure that people that are listening can relate to just seeing people that you've taught and meant, like these patients, and then seeing again the decisions they're making. And, fear is a strong motivator. So
Sure.
I was like, I can't be exhausted when I'm doing this. I need to start thinking proactively. I mean, if I could do it all over, I would have immediately had multiple doctors in my office. I really think that one of the things that I've struggled with is retrofitting a personality driven sole practitioner office into a multi-doctor office. It just, for me, has eluded me. I'm not giving up on it, but I think that my fellow chiropractors that have always had multiple doctors, it's just part of the culture of the clinic, and it's much easier
Yeah.
and I think it's much easier to exit when you have multiple doctors. Yeah.
I mean, I sold to my associate and
Yeah.
it was a 9-month transition period for
Mm-hmm.
him to take it over. And the last 3 months I sat in the back office and I was a glorified CA at that point,
Right.
hugging on people, loving on people, doing paperwork. But it created the transition that I and he was looking for, to
Right.
not lose patience. So
It's
I think that
awesome.
there's a way that it can be done
Mm-hmm.
and done in a way that benefits everybody. So,
Awesome.
well, Doc, last question that I have for you, and we end this with all of our guests. Tell me one thing that you haven't figured out that you're currently working.
I think one of the things that I haven't figured out that I'm currently working on is just consistent self-care. Just consistent. Like somebody said this to me, and one of my friends recently, I hadn't seen her in a while, and I was like, "Damn, girl, you look good." And she's like, I'm training. She said, I'm in practice full time and I got to train this body. And I was like, yes. And I had just released a associate and taken on the whole practice myself again. And I was hurting, like my body was feeling it. And so, I can't tell you how many chiropractors that don't get adjusted. It's really a
Crazy.
crazy. And so for me, that is always obviously the foundation. But and so that has really been my mission this year, is to work on really strength training and getting my body stronger. And for me, I had to ask for some help. Like I'm just going to go to the gym and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, then this hurt. And then I hurt this. And I'm like, oh, so let's go back to the drawing board and find somebody that can help, and spending my money on me is not a luxury, but an investment, because we're the power source, man.
We're our
We
greatest
gotta,
asset.
absolutely. And so it's not, it is an investment. Like you just can't keep taking, you will be depleted. I know I will. And so I have to, one of the things I've just started going back to doing, I mean, part of seminars for me are just getting away and just getting in a different energy and a just different vibration than the day-to-day vibration of being in your own home and in your own practice. And so just getting back on the road has felt so good in the last 6 months, just to go to some different things and hear different speakers. And yeah,
Well, Doc, thank you so much for being on. We look forward to having you back.
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Have a good day, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If you enjoyed this episode of Table Talk, a chiropractic podcast, make sure that you subscribe and check out the links below to our free Facebook group with chiropractic marketing secrets, our free resource guides, and the links to all of the guests that we have here on the show and ways to be able to connect with them. Thanks and God bless.